welcome back to Black News Tonight. Can choosing a certain color of emoji be racist? And what color of a thumbs up or smiley face should you pick if you want your text messages to be, well, racially neutral? Believe it or not, many find the question a complex one, and a recent NPR article on the subject is stirring up lots of conversation. In response to NPR's tweet about the story, many on Twitter went to tag my next guest in the hope that she would chime in on the debate. Her name is Dr. Sheena Mason. She is assistant professor at Suny Oneonta. She's also the president and co-founder of the Theory of Racelessness. She says that believing in the existence of race is part of the problem, and that if we want to escape and end racism, it's time that we do something different. Here to tell us what that different thing is and break it all down for us is Dr. Sheena Mason. Dr. Mason, welcome to Black News Tonight. Let's start with the article and this sort of premise, right? Because someone will ask, how could choosing a particular color of emoji be racist? What does it say about society that this is even a conversation we're having right now?
I think it speaks volumes. It speaks to the fact that for too long, whiteness has been conflated with the category of racelessness. So when people choose the yellow emoji, the Bart Simpson emoji, to express themselves in text messages, emails, social media, etc., that people would receive that as one trying to deflect one's whiteness, right? And so in some ways, my work is helping people deconstruct or detach this liberation that racelessness can offer all of us away from the category of whiteness. Because if we do not do that, then we will continue to perpetuate racism intentionally and unintentionally.
So let me make sure. So I want everybody to understand exactly what you're talking about here. So just to use the emoji example, there's a black emoji, and there is a white emoji, and then there's this yellow emoji. And you're saying that if people want to be race neutral or raceless, they want to not identify by race. In some ways, to be white is to not have the race, right? And so if we pick the Bart Simpson emoji, to use your language, there's a way that somehow we're avoiding race by choosing whiteness. Is that right?
I think that's the interpretation, and that's why the NPR piece received so much backlash.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And what I'm understanding you to say is, if we want to actually get past this moment of racism, or not moment of racism, this structure of racism, this system of racism, that we have to do something different than we've done before. Now, many people on Twitter wanted you to chime in. They were saying we need her in this conversation. Did that surprise you? And what do you think they wanted from you? What type of analysis do you think they were looking for from you?
It didn't surprise me. I mean, it did and it didn't. I'm new to Twitter, and that was the most tagged tweet that had happened in my existence on Twitter, which has just been a few months. But I see the outcry for me to chime in on such topics as indicative of how people engage with my work. And how people engage with my work and my signature theory of racelessness is in a manner that many people feel precluded from doing when it comes to the way that we have been doing this thing called anti-racism. And as you say, this is not unique to the contemporary moment. We have been fighting against racism for a very long time, since before this country was even conceived, right? And people, I think, are ready for something different, and they're ready for not just more generative conversations about racism, but they're ready for solutions, and they see Theory of Racistness as offering a solution.
All right, so this is where it gets interesting, because people hear you say that you have a theory of racelessness. And the first thing a lot of people gonna do is say that she is one of them people out here saying that she ain't got no race, that she ain't black, that she don't want to deal with race. And so they would immediately recoil, they would immediately be frustrated with you. So I want to give you an opportunity in front of all of my viewers, I won't say how many, I want you to have an opportunity to say, because there's so many of them, I want you to say just exactly what the theory of racelessness is.
Yes, so thank you so much. So My doctorate is in English literature. I earned it from Howard University, and I specialize in African American, Caribbean, and American literature. And it's my analysis and deep study of that literature and those histories that led me to the conclusion that part of what the literature shows us, but that we haven't been necessarily open to in the past, is that to undo racism, we have to undo our belief in race. So the theory of racelessness is operating from that premise, and it's a methodological and pedagogical framework for analyzing race and racism. We have certain core tenets, such as
Hold on,
race is
I need to slow
not
down.
a,
I need to pause you for I need to pause you for 1 second because those are a lot of big words, and I got my PhD in a dice game, so we're gonna slow down. So the first thing you said is that our belief in racism, right, or our belief in race, excuse me. When you say we have a belief in race, there are going to be people out there that, what do you mean believe in race? I'm looking at my skin. My skin is brown. That person's skin is white. The race is real. If you don't believe race is real, try to catch a cab. Try not to get shot by the police in Anchorage, Alaska. They're going to say that these things are real. What does it mean to believe in race? Because some people out there are going to say, what do you mean believe? It's not something to believe in. It just is. What do you say to that? Help us understand that first.
oh, yes, thank you so much for asking. So I'm with Toni Morrison when she said that race does not exist biologically or anthropologically, that racism is a social construction. So my contention is that racism is what exists, and racism requires us to believe in race in order to continue the machinery of said racism. And when you study the genealogy of the concept of race, how it operated in early modern Europe, how it was adopted and co-opted, and language such as black, white, and of color was used in the American context to justify the enslavement and genocide of Africans and indigenous people, then you come to see race and this belief in race very differently. Part of my conclusions have been that racism creates race, and initially, it was thought to be something biological. There's a philosophy, there's a discipline in philosophy called Philosophies of Race that speak to how people view race and what they think should be done with it. And every single one of us has two philosophies of race, even without having the names for it. So at the earliest stages, the concept of race was a naturalist philosophy. So people were taught that it's biological. There's a way to be biologically black or white, etc. And what you just described, such as skin color, and this ties to the conversation about emojis earlier, people see skin color, they see hair texture and other features, and they translate that into race. And modern science has disproven the existence of race, and for the scientists who still say that race exists, that's often and sometimes known as pseudoscientific or scientific racism. But also there are scientists who say that race exists, it's just that the value, the weight of what people place on the existence of race in any meaningful way is more aligned with the zodiac, being a Gemini, right, or being a Leo. However, in American society, we're taught to put an inordinate amount of weight and value onto the category of race. So in this
Right.
way, people still operate from naturalist philosophies while calling it a construction. And I sit in the third category, which is the last category that speaks to what a person can think race is, which is skepticism. And my skepticism tells me that race doesn't exist in nature, and it doesn't exist as a construction for me, because what people are interpreting into race, such as skin color or the color of an emoji or hair texture, they're misinterpreting either ethnicity, which includes ancestry and phenotype. They're misinterpreting culture, which has come to be racialized and conflated with race, or they're misnaming social and economic class. Point being, this misidentification of other meaningful categories, and the fact that racism hides its face as race in our society, it leads me to the conclusion that to undo racism, we have to undo our belief in race. And in doing that, we can
Okay,
decouple, if you
let me.
would.
I gotta pause you just for a commercial. I have to pause you just for a commercial break. We're gonna come back and we're gonna unpack this further because I understand what you're saying, right? And you're effectively saying, if I'm understanding you correctly, and I want to make sure I understand you that way, I'll make sure the audience understands you, is that race that biologically we're not different. That me and the white guy you know, who walking down the street, biologically, the differences between us are infinitesimal. They're very small. They're very slight. But what has happened historically is that people have categorized human beings by this thing, and that separate and categorizing us by this color of our skin and the fullness of our lips or the wideness of our hips, all these physical things. That race has become the way that we've separated people, but we could just as easily separate people by, like you said, zodiac sign or eyelash length or whatever it would be, and we'd have no more meaningful differences than we do by doing it like this. So and because we've separated people by race and it's been used as a means of domination and control, you're saying that to continue to believe in race or use race as a meaningful category or a meaningful distinguisher actually reinforces and normalizes the racism itself. I hear you on that, but some people are going to ask, and we're going to cover it on the other side. Well, we in this thing now. Can we see outside of race? Is it valuable? And they also might ask you all this culture and ethnicity and stuff that you're calling meaningful because it's been so melded into race. You know, can we disentangle it anymore? When we come back, I want to get your thoughts on this stuff because I want to really understand how we, because at the end of the day, all of us want racism to end, at least everybody who watched this show, the legions of people who watch this
Yes,
show.
exactly.
So I'm going to make sure we figure out how to do that. Everybody stay with me. We'll be right back. We'll be right back. After the back to Black News tonight, we continue our conversation with Suny Oneonta Assistant Professor Dr. Sheena Mason. She's president and co-founder of the Theory of Racelessness. And she says that to end racism, we need to eliminate race. So, Dr. Mason, let me just pick up where we started. So, can we see? Is it possible to see outside of race in a country that's built on white supremacy, in a country where our identities are rooted in many ways in these notions of black, white, etc.? How do we see outside of it?
Well, I can tell you from my own experience, it is work. It means being very strategic. It's emotional work, spiritual work, my students have called it, as well as intellectual work. But I absolutely believe that we can overcome this thing. And what people call white supremacy would have its way with us if we continue to convince ourselves that it's impossible to overcome. And I will say that my work is bringing more people into the conversation about racism in ways that are meaningful and generative and help stem the issue at the core, which is exactly what we need in order to have any chance of overcoming racism, given its long history in this country.
And what is the danger? One of the dangers, I should say, to ask it differently. What I worry about, to be blunt, is that there are a whole bunch of white people who don't want to own up to their privilege, who don't want to own up to the power that they have as white people. And some of the people who championing your perspective aren't championing it because they want to end white supremacy, but simply because they want to hide it.
I understand that concern, and it's a concern I have myself because, as with most work, anything is up for interpretation and people can use it for their own nefarious ways. I do feel very heartened by the fact that the percentage of people who would twist and essentially bastardize what I'm saying is very few and far between. I've actually not experienced anyone doing that. The people who engage with my work enter the door because they see that I'm operating from this position of racelessness, which means not that people aren't held accountable or are perfectly comfortable, but it does mean that they are not painted into corners that you hear many people speaking out against being painted in. And because the door is open to them to engage with racism and the history of racism and the contemporary instances of racism in more meaningful ways, I take that as a win all day. Is it going to be an easy path forward? No. But one of my mentors from Howard University, where I earned my doctorate, tells me that I am crazy. He says I'm crazy like Martin Luther King Jr. or Gandhi or Nelson Mandela, who were bold enough to imagine, in a society in which they had no context to imagine things changing, that this society can change. And given the length of time that humans have existed on this earth, if we consider how long racism, in the ways that we think of it in the American context, has existed, it's been a short time. So, and we needn't take generations and centuries longer to finally get to the other side of this.
Okay. Dr. Sheena Mason, president and co-founder of the Theory of Racelessness. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your insights.